is joining us for today's webinar. My name is Katie Cordell and I'm here with the Boardable team. I also want to introduce our backend support, Meredith. She is going to walk you through how you can be participating during today's webinar.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. We're so excited to have you join us. As you come in, you'll be able to see a panel, should be on the right-hand side of your screen. Towards the bottom, you're going to have a chat option where you can ask questions of us. At the end of the webinar, I'll be sharing those questions with Katie and Krista. So as we go through the webinar, feel free to drop questions, thoughts. You hear an idea that you love, you can drop it there as well. You also will be launching polls. So I'm going to actually send you one right now about what you're hoping to learn today. And so there's a couple more throughout the webinar, and when you get those, respond to those, and Katie and Krista will share those results. Other than that, back to you, Katie.
Thanks, Mare. We'll let those results come in. I'm starting to see some answers trickle in today. This just helps us understand a little bit more about who we have on today's call. And as those responses are being collected, it looks like right now the most interesting thing is how to build your board or committee culture, improving member engagement. Yes, now I'm starting to see those results come in a little bit quicker. We are going to let people continue to vote, and if I end up closing the poll before you have the opportunity to select your option today, feel free to drop it into the control panel and we'll be sure to discuss. Great, I'm going to go ahead and close that poll in the interest of time. And here are some results for folks. So you can see that the most interesting thing that we have is around training and how to set expectations for folks who are brand new to a board or committee, followed closely behind with building board or committee culture and then improving that member engagement. Quite interesting today. So I am pleased to announce that on our webinar today, I think we're going to cover all of those questions and areas of concern. My name is Katie. As I mentioned earlier, I'm here with the Boardable team. I live and breathe all things training and onboarding for boards here at Boardable. My background is really focused, though, on nonprofits. So my master's degree is in nonprofit management. I've worked with nonprofits, served on boards as both a committee member and a staff liaison. So really a robust history there. But I could not be more excited to be joined by a special guest today, Krista Martin, who is going to talk a little bit about herself. I'll let her do that introduction, but she is our Vice President of Growth here at Boardable. Thank you, Krista, for joining us.
Thank you, Katie. I'm so glad to be here today and having these type of conversations and even seeing how many incredible registrants we have today. We can share a lot of information, but really the power is in every attendee here and sharing your thoughts and ideas with each other. There's a lot of strength there. So I am Krista Martin. I am the VP of Growth at Boardable. I have gone through BoardSource's nonprofit consultant certification, and on top of that, I have also served on a couple of boards. So Katie is definitely the best expert here, but I've been around this world for quite a while too. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys today.
Hey, thanks, Krista. We had a lot of fun planning today's training, so we're going to keep it pretty conversational today. Keep asking you to participate, and by that, I have another poll that I want to launch before I go to the agenda. So one of the things that we want to know is how long has your organization been operating? We know that board service can look a little bit different depending on if you're in your first year or if you've been around for 100 years. So feel free to select the option that falls into the best range for you. And if you don't know, that's quite all right as well. I understand that some of you may be new to your roles, and this might be a little bit of homework for you to find out after the webinar today. As those results are coming in, it looks like we have quite a few folks who have been around for a while, and we have quite a range as I'm seeing more of those votes come in today. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll as those results are coming in. I'm going to share them with you, just letting you know. Most of our folks on the call today have been around for over 25 years, which is great. We hope that you have some ideas that you can get from today's webinar as you are looking to continually improve your board training. And let me go ahead and close that poll out. There we go, and get back to our slides. So for today's agenda, we're really going to be talking about those topics. So recruitment, the role of the board member, how to set your board members up for success, setting expectations, really starting with that board orientation and then providing ongoing training opportunities. And we'll wrap today with some Q&A. So as questions come in, as you think of ideas, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we will answer them live on air. So the first area that we really want to talk about today is what is the role of the board member? So one of the first things that is important to know is what type of board do you actually have? Depending on how long your organization's been around, it might look a lot different. If you are just starting out, you might really have that roll up your sleeves type of board where everyone needs to pitch in. If you've been around for a while, Krista's nodding because I know she's had that experience on both ends. If you've been around for a while, it might look a little bit different. Krista, do you want to share about kind of the two different types of boards that you've really experienced?
Sure. So I've been on a board that really was looking for a lot of my professional skill set and getting in and using some of my marketing background and technology background and getting into some of their systems and helping in a few different ways, on top of other board responsibilities like fundraising, attending events. And then the other board that I served on was in more of an advisory capacity. So not quite getting into that day to day and learning how my skills can help on maybe that type of level, but in the advisory capacity, really thinking about that fundraising role and working with the staff and helping them on a more strategic level. So that's a very distilled version of both of those experiences, but they can be quite different. Even with someone coming from the same background, it's really what they're looking for in the board and understanding what role they will play.
Yeah, I think that's so key. I think sometimes folks who are new to a board might not know what type of board experience they're looking for yet, or they might not know exactly what skills they're most excited to use. You might have an accountant who's so sick of doing accounting all day long. And so when they get asked to be on the board, you might be thinking, oh, this will be great. They can work on our finance committee. That might be the last thing that they want to do. So on the slide here that I have right now, I just wanted to pull up an example of a board matrix. This might be something your organization's already using, but it can help you identify both the skills that you have currently on the board and where there might be some gaps and opportunities. So you can see that we're talking about both your skills and experience, but you also might want to be thinking about things like demographics. Do you have a nice age range? If you're serving a certain population group, do you need client representation on your board? And how are you going to find those people? The top header here, the role of the board member, is going to link you back to a great blog post that we recently released that's all about board members and how those membership roles change depending on the age of the organization and the type of board that you have. Just things to be thinking about there. And the key part there that you might want to be considering is what's the role of a board member versus staff. So I would like to say that before you even start that recruitment process, make sure you have a clear understanding about who's doing what and who's responsible for what. The board role is really designed to be governance and designed to help with strategic planning, that strategic vision, whereas the staff role is really going to be in the day-to-day. So some of those hiring decisions might be the responsibility of your executive director, but that executive director review, that's going to fall onto the board itself. So having a clear distinction about who's responsible for what can help with those roles as you go forward. So moving along, as we're talking about board roles, we also want to spend just a little bit of time talking about how do you find the right people to fill those roles. I think that this can be probably one of the most challenging areas, and it starts even before the board is formed or those positions are filled. So as you can tell, it is mail day right now, and I have a dog who is barking at the postman, which always seems to happen right around webinar time. So please bear with me. I'm sure that package will be delivered soon. So as we're going along, just want to go back to our slides and talk about recruitment. So really identifying where do you find your board members? And this is a question that I want to talk about with everyone who's on the webinar today. So if you can drop that into the chat. Do you have a clear understanding of who's responsible for finding those new board members? Maybe you have a committee, or maybe this is the role of your board chair, or maybe you have a executive director who's really strong and present in your community, and so they are really responsible for that recruitment. And then how are you locating folks? Maybe you are doing friends of friends. You know, we ask our board members, hey, you've been really active, your term of service is almost up. Do you have a good recommendation? for someone who might be a good fit for this type of role. But I've seen a lot more organizations really try to expand their networks. I think this is something that rings true, especially in the past couple of years, that we're really trying to identify where we can find those voices that might not have been at the table originally. So I just put in some ideas and tips for where you can find some of those new board members if that is new for you. One of the best ways is those local professional societies. So I mentioned that example of the accountant, right? If you have a local accounting group in your community, that might be a nice place if you're looking for financial skills to identify those folks. I'm a member of a chorus, and we are always looking for a treasurer. It's a very hard role to fill for our board. And we recently reached out to our local financial planning firm. And that was a great way that we could connect with someone who had no connection to choral music, cannot carry a tune to save their life, but they were really excited to give back and to connect and be able to provide their professional skills. Like Krista mentioned earlier, having that professional expertise can make a difference. I also wanted to throw out here that committees can be a nice pipeline. So if you have established committees, that can be a nice way to vet your board as well. And then sharing the job description. So how many folks here on this call actually have a job description for their board members? I think it can vary from organization to organization. But if you have something like that, or if you're interested in creating something, I know we have a couple of resources here at Boardable that we like to use, but sharing those board member job descriptions and role descriptions, and then you can post them. You can post them on your own website, share them widely on social media, and that can help people self-select if they're interested in board service, saying, oh, this is something I could do. I can commit to a couple of years, and that might not have been a person you would have reached out to otherwise. Krista, are there any examples that I may be forgetting as I'm going along?
I did have a fun story of how I found my first board that I was able to participate in. I was new to the city that I had just moved in, and so the Friends of Friends was hard for me. I was just getting my career started in a new city, meeting new people, and so your network changes. And I'm going through this again right now, but there's a lot that um, is tough for someone that's just moving to your city. They want to get involved, they want to get engaged. During COVID, especially, just like Katie said, people having the ability to opt in without having to see someone in person or have coffee with someone who knows someone, those are absolutely good strategies as well, and they work. But finding that talent outside of what you have been kind of cultivating for years already is so important. So I got on Twitter and I said, I am new here, and here's my background, here's my professional skills, and here's some of my passions of where I think I could give back. And what ended up happening is that one of the organizations actually reached out to me directly because they were active on social media, and then the other, I actually got connected with a previous board member. And so I just started conversations, and then you go through and you actually see, is it the right opportunity? Are my expectations aligned with what the board needs? And so it's not a just because you put it out there, you have to say yes, but it's a really cool way to reach new people that maybe want to, and they're sitting at the edge of their seat trying to get involved and they don't know how. So being a little creative can go pretty far.
I love that example. I recently attended a virtual nonprofit board fair, and I was like, okay, we'll see how this goes, right? We'll see what happens. And I think that I probably talked to maybe 5 people. It was kind of like a meet and greet speed dating event. I was like, okay, 5 people for, an hour or 2 of time. That doesn't seem like very many. I'm sure this will maybe not pan out. And I was so pleased. We have 2 new volunteers from that experience. So that return on investment was huge just by being able to go to some of those circles and events that I wouldn't have thought would have been that beneficial. So being a little bit creative can go a long way. That's great. Speaking of creativity, Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you as we talk through setting your members up for success.
Sure. So Katie just told you a lot of ways you can start finding and recruiting new members. And then it's how do we cultivate them and set those expectations? So you could see a couple of things we're going to cover here. But first, getting into that cultivation piece. The the committee structure, as Katie mentioned, that could be a really good place of if people have started showing engagement, especially that are on maybe volunteering or on different committees. I don't know if you use any type of board management or attendance tracking, and you can start seeing people with their actions start raising their hands saying, maybe I want a different role. Maybe I love what I'm doing now, but by my participation, I'm ready for the next step. So that's a great way to start cultivating some talent and really having those conversations. The other way is meet and greets. So just like Katie said, as you start finding people that seem like they might be a good fit for your board and are interested, start spending some one-on-one time with them. Or maybe it's a coffee with a couple of people from your organization that they could start getting a feel for what you want and get past the initial conversation and the job description and into what the relationship could look like. So it's really important during that time to maybe schedule a coffee, and it can be over Zoom. It could be a video conference. I'm in Iowa, Katie's in Indianapolis, and we get to talk all the time, but we don't get to do it in person very often. That doesn't mean we can't establish expectations together and cultivate our relationship. So be open to how you execute it. And then understanding that role of a board member is just so important. Really talking about what it means to be a board member if they've never served before, or maybe they've just served on a different type of board, and understand what the new expectations are. So actually getting into the expectations is what I'd like to cover next. My personal expectations of what I want in a board, or maybe even what I hope to find in a board, have changed. I've moved states. I now work from home. I have 2 children. And so as you think about those job descriptions, expectations for participation for me now might have to look like some of my meetings are remote because maybe I can't make it in person every time. And being able to really understand what you expect out of your board members, and then understand what they expect to actually give back to you. So matching that really well, where if I was trying to attend a board meeting in person every time, I anticipate a little bit of friction. My partner doesn't have a very flexible schedule for childcare. And so just all of these ingredients are really important to think about outside of just the passion for the organization, because that board member is going to come in and want to change and help. And so just aligning those expectations of attendance and what are fundraising goals, what committee participation would we hope you might have, or even what terms we're looking to have. Can you make a 3-year commitment right now? Can you not? So having all of those conversations up front are so important for both you and the board member. Next, kind of going into, once again we're matching up, things are going in the right direction, getting into board member orientation. So you could see here we have a couple of resources. Once you've found that match, we have created our own Boardable member orientation checklist. We have a great blog post that goes into a lot of great detail on a lot of the topics we're talking about today. And then BoardSource is always a really, really good resource as well to help you think of other ways to structure that board orientation. Now, when you host that board orientation, this should always happen prior to the first board meeting. So we don't want to show up that same day and have the board member not know exactly what's going to happen, or really have the full story of your mission and your organization. So it can be in person when you're holding this orientation. You're going to want to include and go over things like your bylaws, your financial statements, conflict of interest forms, if those are important for your org, which they are, meeting minutes, so they can get a feel of what is happening in the meetings prior, and they can get up to speed instead of at the meeting reviewing a bunch of information. They get to engage. So these are really important things to go over in board orientation. You need to be very clear with how information is communicated. So in that orientation, talking about if it's a board management tool, or if it's an email, maybe it's a board packet that is digital, and here's how you operate it, and here's what you review. So just going through those type of important expectations within the orientation will make that first board meeting just really go through for that new member, and it will feel very good to both sides. So I think those are a lot of good ways to start your board orientation. again, those checklists are great. There's a lot to this. You can kind of have it fit your organization and what makes sense for you, especially with hearing we have a lot of organizations that are 25 plus years old, right? Like the history of your organization is going to be really long. Now, maybe if you're brand new, the history is pretty short. So really make it customized to exactly how you want to orient your own board members. And Katie, do you have any examples for board orientation that you'd like to share with everyone?
Yeah, feel like over the past couple of years, I'm starting to see new trends emerge. So I have some organizations that I work with closely where orientation isn't just, one day. It's not just, okay, we oriented you and now good luck, you're a board member. They have ongoing training. They check in pretty regularly with the new board members, especially during that first year. But then I know some groups where they spend the last 30 minutes of every board meeting training their members or refreshing some of their members on best practices for governance. So how do you read a nonprofit financial statement? Or what does it mean to follow the duty of care? So really helping them understand some of those terms that may be new depending on industries and knowledge there has been really helpful for some of that process. And then of course, is it virtual? Is it in person? Those things are constantly evolving. Okay, I'm going to take us to our next slide because it's my favorite topic. And that is about the idea of board buddies, having a board mentor. I think this can be a really nice thing to establish during that board member orientation. And this might be someone who's involved with the board, but isn't necessarily in a leadership role. So not necessarily an officer, but someone who's been engaged, who's maybe been around for at least a year, so they know kind of how the flow of each meeting goes and what the expectations are. And this is really just a person for your new members to ask questions to. Hey, what's the culture like? Or what do I wear to a board meeting? Things that they might be a little bit nervous about asking to an executive director or a board chair. So those types of things can be really helpful. And we encourage you to set that up prior to that first board meeting so that they can really help that person who's new walk into the meeting with a lot of confidence. So reaching out to them before their first board meeting, showing up a few minutes early, encouraging the board mentor to meet with a new board member one-on-one, maybe once or twice throughout the course of the year, just to check in and make sure that they're having a good experience and it's meeting their expectations. I think all of those can be really helpful tips. And then of course, following up after that first board meeting, just saying, hey, did that make sense? Was it all Greek to you? Do you have any questions as we go along? I think that's really helpful. And that, like I said, can be anyone at any level within the board. It doesn't necessarily have to fall onto your chairs or your officers. Okay. So I also want to talk about ongoing training opportunities, which I mentioned briefly, and really just talking about how board orientation doesn't end after that first board meeting. So you might have long-term board members who have been around for years, maybe decades in some cases, and they might need a refresh on some best practices. A lot may have changed since they first started. So one of the things that I like to recommend is just starting each meeting, coming in a little early, staying a little afterwards, answering some questions. So as questions are coming up, scheduling time to go over training if you think it's a theme, or talk about best practices. This can be a nice time for your board members to meet staff. So we know that some organizations like to do staff report outs, and some organizations get very frustrated. I saw some of those polls come in about board engagement. They get frustrated that maybe the board members aren't reading those staff reports that people spend a lot of time and energy on. So something we saw recently that's been helpful is maybe record a quick video of your staff member so they can present a video during the board meeting. It's more interactive. It feels like you're talking to a real person and you can start to put a face to a name. So think about ways that you can keep with that professional development of your board members, since we know that's such a reason why people join boards. They want to keep growing their skills. Okay, Krista, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Sure. So I just wanted to remind everyone that checklist is going to be great for everything we've talked about today. Hopefully it guides you and gives you a couple of new ideas, but I'm sure, as we're going to see from all of the chat, you guys have a lot of ideas that we didn't mention. So talk to each other, and this community is really important, and make sure you plug into it. Then I did want to mention, we are Boardable and we do have board management software. And one thing that's really important is having one space for everyone to go. So I just wanted to talk really quickly about Boardable, and we have stored over 300,000 documents that help board members go into one place and not have to ask staff for it 5 different times. And that is so important. They can check the bylaws and the mission and actually get into the history without having to continuously ask so many times. They could self-serve, which is always important. And then meetings, running a great meeting and all the steps we talked about coming into that meeting with making sure our board members are set up for success. The board meeting itself having some structure in a very intelligently crafted agenda is really important too. So we love helping boards, and if you haven't checked us out, I really encourage you to. We have a free trial. It's 14 days. You get all of our pro features, and we'd really like to see what you think. So that's my little, hey, we're here too if you need some help.
Thanks, Krista. I just saw those numbers for the first time today. That's pretty amazing. Over almost 4,000 agendas created in the past month is pretty incredible. Yeah. I'm impressed. I've been to a lot of meetings where agendas weren't created. Not at Boardable, for other organizations.
Hey, we're not perfect either. I've been to a couple.
So we're going to open it up to everyone who's been joining us today and turn it over to Mare, who has been looking at questions as they come in, and we are happy to answer some of those questions for you.
I will have to admit, I was also giggling as you were talking about agendas, because I've also been to my fair share of meetings with no agendas. The first question we have is, how might an executive director respond to board chairs and members that are resistant to some of the points you've been making throughout the webinar today?
I can hop in here. So I think for me personally, I always want to know why someone's resistant. Is it going to be more time than they originally thought? And, is doing setting some of these expectations, I think people get a little bit freaked out that they say, hey, this is more than the 10 hours a month I had budgeted for my service. So I think understanding why folks are resistant. And then my second recommendation would be to say, for recruitment, for board training, for that orientation, that might not necessarily be the role of a board chair. So maybe you have a couple folks on the board who are really excited about bringing in new ideas, about helping people feel like this is a board that they can serve on and grow with. And those might be a great group to create your recruitment committee or your board orientation committee. So maybe taking that off your board chair's shoulders, taking it off of the membership, and really investing in some folks who are looking for those leadership opportunities in an area that they're interested in. Krista, anything to add there?
I think that's a couple of great recommendations, and change is hard. I think just first acknowledging that too, that we are looking to do something different because we see there could be a better way. And the better way sometimes takes a little bit of upfront time, but then if you make it a repeatable process, it really is hopefully something that will save time in the long run and boost engagement. So it is hard, change is hard, and I think Katie's recommendations are great. Who's really good at change and who wants to step up? That's a good question to ask.
All right, so our next question is kind of talking about how everything has changed for boards in the last 2 years. So if someone is interested in locating a virtual nonprofit board fair, how would they find it? Is it Google? Is there a registry of some kind? How would they find that information so they can connect?
So you mentioned a great resource yesterday. Am I jogging your memory at all here?
Yes. This is only one example, but so I did recently move to Iowa. If there's anyone from Iowa out there, hey, hi, maybe we know each other. I'm just kidding. The state is bigger than that. We probably don't. But I am now looking for a new board to serve on, and it is tough. So I have gone to places like Volunteer Match. You will see some job descriptions for board seats or board membership there. That's been helpful for me to find. Social media, I have seen postings there, but the virtual board fairs, Katie, I haven't seen that become something that is reaching at least my audience yet. That sounds great, and I really want to learn more about that. But where did you find the virtual board fair that you attended?
Yeah, I can speak locally here in Indiana. Two organizations are really taking the lead on that. One is actually our Chamber of Commerce. So, our local Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce is showing some leadership there around ways that they're connecting people back to their community. So, how can they engage their membership with more of a civic pursuit there? So, I think reaching out to Chamber of Commerce, maybe they're not the one hosting it, but maybe they know of who would. And then I would say the other resource that we have is really looking at some of those leadership societies. So we have a couple groups in town that are really geared towards leadership development, professional growth, mentorship. And so sometimes they'll put on networking events that have more of that nonprofit or virtual volunteerism spin.
So we had an attendee also give us an idea. Indeed also lists virtual board openings. And I can add my experience here. I'm not as experienced with this as Katie and Krista are, but I've actually been in the same boat as Krista that I've recently moved and looking for a board to serve on. And the thing I can recommend, because I actually found a board in the last week, is looking for who might be interested in my cause and where are they going to hang out? What are they going to be doing? So I actually found mine through social media because it's for the daycare my dog goes to has a rescue arm. And so they send it to the people who send their dogs to the daycare of clearly you care. So there may be things that might be a little outside of the box that would be the type of board members that you would want. So you can think about, and a marketing perspective, which is where I sit, is what is that type of persona? Where are they going to be? What are they interested in? And you may be able to find some board members that way. Krista, I'm going to put this question to you because I know you're going to light up when you get this one. Can you tell us a little bit more about Boardable and how it works?
Oh, yeah. Boardable, so board management software, we cover all parts of the meeting lifecycle. So think about a people directory when you're actually recruiting your board. Let's make sure all their information is always up to date. And if they change their phone number, they can do it. And you can export that instead of having to keep that email thread going back and forth just on logistics. But on top of that, we allow you to schedule meetings, build agendas, take minutes. We actually have a virtual meeting experience. So if you don't use Zoom or you don't use Google Meet, and if you do, you can do it too. But we have an all-in-one screen where if you're having hybrid meetings, remote meetings, it allows you to have everything up on one screen. So you have your agenda on your left side and you could see all of your board members. And Boardable has really just surrounded that life cycle of a board. You're going to be preparing for meetings, you're going to be running meetings, and hopefully there's a lot of accountability and you're following up from those meetings. So think about everything that surrounds there. We have polls, we have tasks, we have goals that you could set as an entire organization and track, and we have a document center. So somewhere where there's permissions-based roles there, but anybody can go and store and find the important information that you need for your nonprofit. So we just really we tackle a lot of the tough problems that boards have. Everything's so fragmented. We use the term digital duct tape a lot. Maybe you're using 6 systems, and that's a lot. And your board members, that's a lot for them. Give them one login, have them get everything they need, and that's really what we focus on with our software.
Well, thank you so much, Katie and Krista. Oh, we got one in. They came in right at the cuff here. So last question for you, and then we'll wrap it up. How do you integrate, supplement, or support organizations that have an association management company, or do you?
I can take this. So yes, we work with quite a few organizations that either are association management companies or have some sort of connection to them, whether that be, their state affiliate or a local group. So we can do that in a variety of ways. And if you have more questions about that, I would encourage you to email us at success@boardable.com. But we really provide training for anyone who is new to a board management tool, which a lot of groups and a lot of organizations we work with are, and then also making sure that we help to streamline some of their existing communication, meeting setup. It's really great for that succession planning and longevity of your organization as you're thinking through, our board's term of service is 2 years, and then in 2 years, are we going to have a whole new group of people coming in and we're going to have to retrain everything? So what resources can we provide to make sure that we get them up to speed quickly? Thanks.
All right, so that's going to wrap up our webinar. And as promised in the marketing materials we sent about the webinar, we are going to give away 2 gift cards to attendees. So our first one is Michael W. And then we're also, bang my desk, we're going to be giving one to Beverly S. So look for an email later today with your gift card. We're excited and thank you so much for joining us today. And we'll see you at a future Boardable webinar.
Thank you all so much.
Bye, everyone.